Hi, everybody. I wanted to tell you how I got into skincare. When I was growing up, there was a lot of tension in my house. Six kids, first four, 15 months apart, and then two other a few years later. My father was the youngest of 12. He grew up in an immigrant family, dire poverty. So he worked very, very, very hard in the construction business. And he brought a lot of tension home. And my mom was so young when she had us. My parents were both very, very young. And so they didn't know how to navigate that stress and tension. So at mealtime, it was so stressful for the whole family. And my stomach was in knots, so I could never digest my food. And it made me constipated, and I had problems with that, which led to skin problems. And I remember trying to figure out how to fix it because there was no one to help me. And I was really on my own. And at the same time, the bottom of my feet hurt in certain points, certain areas. So I would dig and dig and dig into the bottom of my foot, which would then release this energy up through my legs and I would feel better, hence reflexology. So at a very young age, I understood the value of reflexology, the value of that fight flight mode when you're eating, or the rest and digest, which we never had. So I realized the impact it had on my health and well-being. So by the time I was 15, I was diagnosed with an ulcer, a stomach ulcer, and it was excruciating for me. And I remember going to the doctor and him saying to me that I had to eat a very bland diet. And I remember thinking at 15 years old, or no, I'm sorry, I was 13 years old. At 13 years old, I remember thinking, wait a minute, if I'm supposed to cook the life out of my food, how will I ever heal this wound in my stomach? So I did the opposite of what he told me to do, and it healed. So again, it was like my life experience taught me about holistic health and healing. I was a tomboy growing up. I was a jock, but I was obsessed with my skin and I loved nature. I Basketball was my thing, basketball and swimming and football and skateboarding. I loved all of that. But when I came home, my skin was my thing. So I started to really figure things out. And by the time I was in high school, I used to look at my girlfriend's skin, and I would be able to figure out what was wrong with them and how to fix it. And my very best friend, her parents were not well. And I used to beg my mother, please let my friend spend the weekend with me. And so she would sleep in my bed. I would make food for her. I would feed her the best foods. I would give her facials, not knowing what I was doing. It was all instinct. And I would clean out her pores. And by Monday morning, when she went back to school, her skin was cleared up. And by Friday, she was a mess again. So it just, I think back about my history and what got me into this, and because it really is a passion, but it's a passion for the right reason. Obviously, I'm not a glamour girl at all. My hair is naturally curly. I'm not going to go crazy trying to straighten it. I'm not going to go crazy with plastic surgery and all that, fillers and all that. I do get Botox. That's the one thing I will always get, because if I don't, I have splitting headaches because I'm always like this doing facials, and the tension, and I can't live on aspirin, and it really helps me. So there you go. So anyway, when I was 18 or 19, this guy broke my heart. I was living in Buffalo. He broke my heart. He was cheating on me. And so I went to stay with friends in Las Vegas. And I wasn't into Vegas, but they were like brothers to me, these guys. So I went and stayed with these guys, and they took me on a hike in the Red Rock Mountains in Nevada, outside of Las Vegas, because they wanted to bring me to this pond that was at the top of this huge, gigantic boulder. And it was a pond formed by rainwater. And it was in the summer. So it was blistering hot in Vegas. I mean, in Nevada. And so by the time we got to the rock, if I didn't get in that water and cool down, I'd be dead. But the water was black and murky, and I was petrified of snakes and leeches. Everything was going through my mind. Little did I know that it was an algae pond. And I went and waded in that water. And I was up to here in it, trying to get on my belly. So the water, I was really submerged in the water. And I will never forget what that water did, that algae water did to my face and body from head to toe, my skin. It was transformed. So I remember thinking about algae. So when I left Vegas and I went back home, I started to go figure out uh, how can I incorporate algae and seaweed into my diet and lifestyle. So fast forward, I moved to New York City in 1983, January 1st, and I had two jobs there. One for a company called Orlan, and it was the most expensive skincare line in the world at that time. And I remember being a salesperson in Bloomingdale's, and I remember seeing these people, and I was trained to sell the products in a certain way, but it didn't make sense to me. So I switched it up, got in trouble with the company, but my sales were so good, it didn't matter. They let me roll with it. But this one woman, she was a scientist. I can't remember in what field, but she was a scientist, and she once a week she went to the dermatologist to get rid of her milia, her whiteheads, and the doctor would dig them out. And I told her to stop eating dairy, and they went away completely on their own and never came back. So we became friends. And I remember that when I was with a customer at the counter, if when the person would come up and they'd wanted some advice on their skin, what they should do, I talked to them about everything but the products. I talked to them about their diet, their lifestyle, how they take care of themselves, and then I interjected the products that they needed. And I remember there was always a crowd forming around the person that I was engaged with, because they were asking me important questions and everybody wanted to know what I had to say. And it was all completely unscripted, but completely a natural and organic way to help that person heal their skin. And then the products just beautified their skin. So after maybe a year or so, I left them and I was interviewing at 601 Madison with Helena Rubinstein. And it took them forever to hire me. And finally they did. And I could not sell their products because they were so synthetic, and I used to get in trouble. But I didn't care because I couldn't sell something I didn't believe in. But there was a good part of that work experience. They had a thalassotherapy tub, which is a bathtub that would fill with water with jets, and there was a hose. And there was a salesman who came around and peddled this algae powder from France. And my manager said, she handed it to me and she said, see what you could do with this. So I started adding that to the bath, to the hydro tub. And the results with that was amazing. So it really went off in my head about the power of algae and what it could do for rejuvenation. So, um, besides being macrobiotic, which seaweed is a big part of the macrobiotic diet, I was macrobiotic at that time, and I ate seaweed every day. It shocked me eating it and then using it externally on the skin. So I remember I was getting ready to leave that company and start my own company. And it was one of my last days there. And I was working on this woman, giving her a hydrotherapy massage. And I was talking to her all about seaweed and the power of seaweed. And she said, you should go into business for yourself. And I said, well, I am. This is my last few days. She said, well, who's making your product line for you? And I didn't think about that because I thought I would buy at that time. I wanted to try Clarins because I liked the way it smelled. And I thought, that would be a cool product line to use. So then she gave me the name of a lab in France. And so I saved up all my money because I only had $300 to my name when I left and went into business for myself. So when I said goodbye to my clients, the great niece of Helena Rubinstein, I said, thank you so much for being my client while I'm here. And she said, I said, I'm leaving, I'm going on my own. She said, I'm following you. So at that time, I worked in my living room. I had a 2-room apartment. That was it. I worked in my living room. I knelt on the floor. My clients laid on the couch. I made the products that I used on them in my kitchen. And that was my beginning. And when I saved enough money, I was charging $30 a treatment. And I worked between that and like if I had to wax somebody's legs, I was doing it on my rug. I'd put paper down, everything, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, from there, I saved up enough money and I took an excursion flight to France, to Brittany, France. And I met with the lab and I told them what I wanted. Because in France, seaweed is a very big deal internally and externally. They're really into that for rejuvenation and for beauty. And they're also really into aromatherapy, essential oils. So those two things really meant something to me because when I was in grammar school and I learned about Cleopatra, and I just thought she was the coolest woman. She was powerful and brilliant and ruled a nation and an empire. Her beauty was bathing in milk and essential oils. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So between all learning about that and then learning with my life experiences for what happened to me with the natural algae bath that I had in Vegas, uh, um, that's what really got me started. So I worked with the chemist, told him everything I wanted. He created a line for me. And then I was shipping it. They were shipping it to me in America. And that was my beginning. And I remember I really got my start by doing this one hairdresser who was so cool. And she was working on a lot of models. So my name took off with the models in New York City in the 80s and 90s because of hairdressers and fashion editors, rather, not beauty editors, fashion editors. So that's how I really got my start. So my product line that I started in, let's see, it was probably 1985 by now. My product line has evolved since then. I only get a few things still made for me in France. I can't have them make my creams because I don't like the ingredients. They wouldn't listen to me. They kept putting things like talc in my creams, and I don't want that because it's so dangerous. So anyway, I now use more American labs than for most of my line. I just use a Spanish lab for a few things. Like I said, the French lab for a few things, and the rest is made in America because I have more control over that. So That's what got me started. So it's a very organic approach, especially starting my business with $300 to my name and really inching my way up. So because I've always had that one-on-one experience with customers and clients, I develop it's very intimate. They tell you everything about their life. And so I really want to help them. So because of what I was going through in my personal life, all of the stress that I was going through, I developed this rash on my face. I had it for 6 years, started on my hands and went to my face, and it left me deformed. And I had dropsy on one side of my face, like I had had a stroke. And if it weren't for that happening to me, I would have never gotten into crystals. I went to every type of doctor possible, and the only thing that cured my rash and my deformity was a crystal healing. So ever since then, and that was in the late 80s, ever since then, I started working with crystals on people. Because had it not been for the crystals, and it's too gross to tell you what happened with the crystals when I put them on me and how it transformed me, but within 2 weeks, my face was completely normal. My hands were completely normal. And ever since then, I started working with them on clients. So when people come to me for a facial in my spa at Susan Naturally in Buffalo, when their mask is on, I do their crystal healing. And I leave them alone in the room, I've got either the sea clay mask on them or the pore minimizing mask on them or the hydrating gel mask on them. One of those three masks will be on their face at that point during the facial. And I put the crystals on all of their chakras, and then I put extra crystals as well. When I come back in that facial room and I walk back in the room, the energy in the room is palpable. You could feel it. There's such a transformation. And then I take the crystals off of people. I put them in salt water to clear their energy because they can't be used on the next person until they're clear. So I have bowls of crystals all over my spa that I use, at different times on people. So, but that's why I'm so obsessed with skin and obsessed with my product line. I don't follow the trends really because I don't like for instance, I won't do microdermabrasion because microdermabrasion is so abrasive. It pokes little holes in your skin, and those little tears create scar tissue, which is why they can tell you that it produces collagen, because when you cut yourself, it's the collagen that knits your skin back together, that scar tissue. But you don't want that all over your face because then there's no that's why scars stay white. There's no blood flow. So your skin, you're killing your skin. So I won't do services on people that will hurt them in the end just to make money. I can't do that. I would rather do it the old fashioned way, which is to teach people about the health and wellness benefits from your everyday life. It's what you do in the morning from the minute you wake up. We're talking about emotionally, spiritually, physically, brushing your teeth, scraping your tongue, rinsing your mouth out, drinking water with either lemon or apple cider vinegar added to it, or drinking teas. Like for instance, I'll make my pot of tea in the morning and I have Earl Grey, hibiscus, fresh cut ginger, cloves, and probably milk thistle, sometimes dandelion. And I do a pot of tea with that and I put my honey in. I love my honey. And then that's my beverage. I don't drink coffee anymore. The more I learned about coffee, the more I had to stay away from it. So I like to jumpstart my day with these little healthy tips. I'm always washing my face in the morning. I take my shower. I'll use my algae deep cleanse. I use the cleansing gel from head to toe because I love a gel cleanser, and then the algae deep cleanse because I love that feeling of all the dead skin coming off. And then when I get out of the shower, it's the application of my essential oils, my marine lotion, and seawater. And when I'm dripping wet from those three things, I'll put my red marine algae on and let that dry into my skin before I put my mascara on and do my eyebrows. Without makeup, I have no eyebrows. I mean, they're just horrible. So that is my thing in the morning. And then throughout the day for energy, I will take my blue green algae pills, 3 of them at least twice a day. And I have a bag of walnuts in my fridge at work, and that's a good thing for me and to keep my energy levels up. And I'm working with the products all day long, so I'm in front of steam, from the face. When I'm giving a facial, I use steam a lot during the facial, so that's nice and hydrating for my skin. And even though my work is very physical, and it's almost like, people are unloading their emotions on me, I need to keep myself balanced and in check. And that's where my algae baths come in, prayer, meditation, all of these things help wash this away and help to keep me grounded and energized, because my day isn't done when I leave work, because I love my husband. I come home and I make a wonderful dinner for us every night, and then there's shopping, cooking, cleaning, and then me time. So my days are really long, but I'm always taking care of myself on every level. And I think because of that, even though I'm going to be 69 at the end of the year, I don't look my age and I don't feel my age unless I don't stretch enough after the trampoline, and then I feel my age. But I really think that teaching people the right way to nurture themselves from the inside out, and then with your 1 or 2 minutes in the morning and 1 or 2 minutes at night with your skincare. If you don't have that kind of time, ladies, oh my God. Oops, sorry, God. If you don't have that kind of time, you got to really reevaluate your life, because if you can't give yourself those 1 or 2 minutes in the morning, please, even if you have a baby, because my clients will say, well, I can't, I've got the baby, blah blah blah. You put your baby in the bassinet, you strap the baby in, you take your shower, you'll feel so much better morning and night when you take showers, washing away all the stress and then doing your routine. You'll sleep so much better. It's proven the power of aromatherapy and what it does to your psyche. And that's why I have essential oils in all of my products. My products are fragranced with essential oils, and essential oils change as the product ages, but that's okay. That's a natural occurrence. And I don't mind that, because I don't really want to have fragrance in my, perfumes in my products. I'd rather be as natural as I can be. So my products are a blend of nature and science. They're as natural as they can be and still be in a jar, and they wouldn't be able to be in the jar unless science was involved. So that's my philosophy on skincare.